All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're breaking down a really fascinating and, well, pretty modern spiritual framework called Seekers of Odin. And the core idea here is that it's a system built not on faith, but on something way more rigorous, a personal audit.
So, let's just start with a big idea to kind of frame our whole conversation today. What if the very act of questioning everything, and I mean everything, was in and of itself a spiritual practice?
To even begin to answer that, we first have to get a handle on what this whole Seekers of Odin thing actually is. So let's define it. Okay, so the source document calls it a structured practice for discovering, testing, and, I love this word, fossilizing truth. Now, fossilizing here just means creating a permanent, solid record of what you've learned through all that tough examination. This isn't about believing something because you're told to. It's a system for processing reality itself. And this is where you really see the split. You've got your traditional models, right? They're based on getting truth handed down to you through revelation, through dogma. But the Seekers of Odin model? It's all about discovering truth for yourself, through audit, through relentless questioning, and, this is a big one, by rejecting any single human authority. So how does this actually work? Well, the whole system is built on just 5 foundational, totally unchangeable rules. These are the core axioms.
First up, truth is structure. The idea here is that truth isn't some mystical secret that gets whispered in your ear. It's more like a pattern that's already woven into the fabric of reality, and you can actually find it if you're willing to look closely and honestly.
The second axiom is huge. This is the way. The path is the practice itself, not the destination. Think about that. It's not about finally arriving at some ultimate truth finish line. The whole point, the spiritual work, is the process. It's the seeking, the questioning, the refining, day in and day out.
And I love this next one, honesty over perfection. This means you don't have to be perfect. You don't need a flawless track record to start. The only price of admission is integrity. It just means you have to be brutally honest about your own flaws and your own failures. And that leads to what might just be the most radical part of this whole thing. Question everything. It's framed as a sacred duty to audit all authority, even divine authority. Just let that sink in. Nothing is off limits. No leader, no sacred text, not even the concept of God is considered too holy to be examined. And finally, no human leadership. This is the failsafe, right? It's what keeps the whole system from being corrupted by some charismatic guru. The only thing you're supposed to follow is the process itself, that relentless, structured hunt for understanding.
Okay, so with rules like no human leadership, you're probably wondering, who is this even for? Well, the framework is really specific about this. It's all about archetype, not your ancestry.
The document is crystal clear. This is not an ethnic or hereditary path. The name Odin is being used as an archetype for that drive to seek wisdom, not as a call to a specific ancestry. It's totally open to anyone who is committed to the process, to honesty, and to what it calls Earth stewardship. They use this phrase, tribal to Earth, which I think is pretty cool. The idea is, your tribe is the entire planet.
So that brings us to the core of it all. How do you actually do this? How do you practice it? Well, it's all done by taking on 3 different archetypal roles.
The first role a seeker takes on is Anubis, the honest auditor. And yes, they're pulling from the Egyptian tradition here. This role is all about judgment, about seeing things with total clarity, especially when things get dark and confusing. So when you're in the Anubis role, your job is to conduct those honest self-audits we talked about. You have to acknowledge your failures without flinching. You examine yourself and the systems around you for what the framework calls structural integrity. Basically, you're asking, is this thing built on a solid, honest foundation, or is it just pretty on the outside? And this quote from the source material just sums it up perfectly. The door to Valhalla opens through honesty. Perfection is not required. Structural integrity is. It's all about being fundamentally sound and honest about your flaws. That is the key.
All right, on to the second role. This is where the practice gets really interesting, maybe a little dangerous. We're talking about Loki, the symbol of necessary chaos.
Now, this role isn't about causing random destruction for fun. It's about a very specific duty, the duty to break systems that are corrupt. It's about triggering a collapse when something is just plain rotten, and it's about being willing to accept the social backlash that always comes with speaking an uncomfortable truth. And here's the guiding principle. Love includes accountability. Sometimes breaking something is how you care for it. This totally reframes destruction, doesn't it? It's not malice, it's more like pruning a sick plant so that new, healthier life has a chance to grow.
And that brings us to the final role, the one that gives this whole practice its name, Odin, the wisdom seeker. This is the archetype of paying a great price for an even greater understanding.
The Odin practice is really the engine of the whole system. It's the work. It's paying the price in time and comfort and social friction to gain understanding. It's creating those fossils of truth we talked about and then teaching what you've learned. You share it publicly, and then you just keep on seeking.
And this really highlights the humility at the core of the Odin archetype. The principle is, a seeker's practice is to pay the costs for understanding and never claim mastery. It's a built-in recognition that this is an infinite game. You never, ever get to claim that you've got it all figured out. The journey is the whole point.
So when you boil it all down, this entire framework really comes back to that one core idea: integrity. And it leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. We know perfection isn't required, but in our own lives, in our jobs, in our own systems, what would it truly actually mean to live with structural integrity?